appreciate what Facebook has done in the area of sexual exploitation of children. Y'all have done a very good job of trying to help law enforcement in that area. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, for the second time in 3 weeks, you've been called before the Senate committee so my Republican colleagues can beat you up over claims that your platforms are supposedly biased against conservatives. The fact of the matter is that these allegations are completely baseless. Everyone who has systematically looked at the content of social media, from Media Matters to the Cato Institute to former Republican Senator John Kyle, has found absolutely no evidence of anti-conservative bias. And data from CrowdTangle show that far-right content from the likes of Fox News, Ben Shapiro, David Bongino dominates the daily top 10 most engaged pages on Facebook. So all of these allegations about the fact that you hire or all of your employees are left of center is relevant of nothing. Certainly not relevant of some sort of anti-conservative bias in terms of your content moderation. So the way I see it, this hearing is a transparent effort by my Republican colleagues to work the refs. And unfortunately, in my view, it is working. 2 weeks ago, the Washington Post reported that Facebook has bent over backwards to avoid claims that it was biased against conservatives. And it removed a strike against Donald Trump Jr.'s Instagram account that would have penalized him as a repeat offender. Apparently, one of several strikes removed from the accounts of Trump family members. Pro-Trump super PAC American First Action was allowed to post material rated false by Facebook's third-party fact checkers without penalty. And these are just a few examples. And they are nothing new. In 2019, Facebook included Breitbart, a website described by its co-founder as a platform for the alt-right, as one of its trusted news sources. And early in 2019, Facebook selected the Daily Caller, another site with white nationalist ties, to be one of its third-party fact checkers. And the Wall Street Journal has reported how Joel Kaplan, former Deputy Chief of Staff to George W. Bush, stopped changes designed to make Facebook's algorithms less divisive because the changes would have disproportionately affected conservative users and publishers, according to Kaplan. So, Mr. Zuckerberg, you founded Facebook, a company with a market capitalization of approximately $80 billion, and you control a majority share of the company's voting stock. And Mr. Zuckerberg, I'm really wondering at what point you will stop giving in to baseless claims of anti-conservative bias and start exercising your control over Facebook to stop driving division and actually, to quote you, build community and bring the world closer together, end quote, as you claim is Facebook's mission. My questions to both of you. A recent Harvard study found that President Trump was the single biggest source of voting-related misinformation in the run-up to the presidential election. Since the election, President Trump has only continued the lies on Twitter and Facebook, falsely claiming that he won re-election and that the election is being stolen from him. But the truth is, Joe Biden won the election, as major news networks and the Associated Press have confirmed. In response to President Trump's lies, you have, at most, added a warning label, while still allowing the president's misinformation to remain online. In response to questions from Senator Feinstein, you defended the labels, claiming they point people to a broader conversation around the election. I have serious questions about the effectiveness of these labels, particularly since President Trump and his allies continue to spread their lies. For both of you, what evidence do you have that these labels are effective in addressing President Trump's lies? Response, please.
So, and I think Mark mentioned this earlier as well, we are doing a retrospective on the effectiveness of all of our actions through the election. We believe the labels point to, as you said, a broader conversation that people can see what's happening with the election and with the results. We don't want to put ourselves in a position of calling an election. That is not our job. So we're pointing to sources and pillars that have truth.
We're listening right now to the Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey, as they continue the Senate Judiciary hearing on really election security and election content monitoring and how that all played into this election and really after it as well. We'll keep an eye on that, but I do want to alert everybody to this big event that we are going to be having in the next several minutes. You can catch it all on newsnowfox.com as we are expecting at any moment right now a Pentagon briefing where there's multiple sources in reports saying that the U.S. military is anticipating President Trump will be issuing an order to plan for further troop withdrawals in Afghanistan and Iraq. So that will be major breaking news, and we will be continuing to bring this to you right here on News Now from Fox, waiting on this news briefing that'll be happening at the top of the hour. Some of you are going to be taking a short 2-minute break. Stay right here with us as we continue to bring you these live events happening throughout the country.
Voting information campaign in the history of our country. So I think when taken together, these actions were quite strong of an effort to communicate accurate and reliable information to people at the times when they needed it about how they could vote in the election, encouraging them to vote, having confidence in the election system, knowing who and when the election had been called. It's just part of an overall system.
My time is running out, and so all of the information, the actual information, voter information you provide, that is good, but we're talking about all of these misinformation, actually outright lies that are put out by the president, and you have these labels. And I really have questions as to whether or not this kind of labeling, and I'm glad that at least Mr. Dorsey is determining whether these labels do anything to actually create a larger framework for discussion. I really seriously consider, doubt whether that is actually happening. Since I'm running out of time, I just wanted to get to, Donald Trump as president, you consider him newsworthy, so a lot of his posts get on whether they contain misinformation, especially on whether he won the election and COVID, you name it, the fraudulent elections that he alleges, et cetera. But I'm wondering, what are both of you prepared to do regarding Donald Trump's use of your platforms after he stops being president? Will he still be deemed newsworthy, and will he still get to use your platforms to spread his misinformation?
Senator, let me clarify my last answer. We are also having academics study the effect of all of our election measures, and they'll be publishing those results publicly. In terms of President Trump and moving forward, there are a small number of policies where we have exceptions for politicians under the principle that people should be able to hear what their elected officials are saying and candidates for office. But by and large, the vast majority of our policies have no newsworthiness or political exception. So if the president or anyone else is spreading hate speech or inciting violence, or posting content that delegitimizes the election or valid forms of voting, those will receive the same treatment as anyone else saying those things. And that will continue to be the case.
Remains to be seen. Mr. Dorsey?
So we do have a policy around public interest where for global leaders, we do make exceptions in terms of whether if a tweet violates our terms of service, we leave it up, but we leave it up behind an interstitial, and people are not allowed to share that more broadly. So a lot of the sharing is disabled with the exception of quoting it so that you can add your own conversation on top of it. So if an account suddenly is not a world leader anymore, that particular policy goes away.
Thank you.
I am running out of time, but I have, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter into the record a number of studies, particularly a November 1st, 2020 article in the Washington Post titled, "Trump Allies Largely Unconstrained by Facebook's Rules Against Repeated Falsehoods," cement pre-election dominance, a May 26, 2020 article in the Wall Street Journal titled Facebook Executive Shutdown Efforts to Make